trust fund. One is the U.S. Trust of America, Bank America. There's another scholarship with TD Bank, and there's another significant trust fund with Citizens Bank, where the capital reserves sit, as far as the town capital reserves. I have not gotten into any detail on that, and I wouldn't until I'm elected. And some of that might not be information that is readily available at this time anyway, and the three trustees would be involved with any decisions on how those funds are invested, along with the town. But we would have to make sure that we did not incur very much risk associated with the investment of those trust funds. And basically what we would want to make sure is that we maintain the principal in those trust funds, because that money is needed along the way within the town as far as expenditures go. But you can look pretty hard at the funds that could be generated from those trust funds, and in particular, it would probably be interest income. And that interest income would conceivably come from certificates of deposit, which are very safe. As everyone knows, all certificates of deposit are insured through the FDIC up to a maximum of $250,000 per account. So I'd want to look at that and see how about spreading out our accounts among various banks. I know right now there's a spread of about 1% between what you can typically get locally in a CD and some of the higher amounts that are available throughout the country. And these are all reputable banks, and they have, I've looked at them before. I do have a very extensive financial background, budgeting background also, by the way. And basically, you can get at least 1% more on a lot of the CDs. And actually, if you're investing larger amounts of money, say over $100,000, then you can even get better rates. And what you also would want to do is try to ladder, what's called laddering in the financial circles. And by that, I mean you would end up staggering the maturities of the CDs. So that's basically why I'm interested in the trustees of the trust fund, and that's what I'd be involved with.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. John?
Well, that was very good.
Thank you.
I guess my answer is going to be relatively short on the trust fund, because not having been involved before in it, you don't really get into the nuances of how you can improve, what changes you can make until you see what's really on the table, see where the paper is, where the money is, and what they're doing. I think what I would bring to the position would be a fresh, new face, maybe new ideas, certainly an open mind to what's happening, and an eagerness to help the town. The reason my name is here in two positions was because I felt it was my turn to give back to the community, and I think I have a lot to offer to the community. Very, very short, it's not an open statement, but we moved here in '83 from Egypt, and we picked Londonderry because it looked like a nice place to raise our two remaining children, and they went through the school system and graduated from high school here. In 1989, I went overseas for a 2-year assignment and stayed 17 years. So for those 17 years, we paid our taxes and enjoyed watching the town grow, and we came back periodically, but didn't have a chance to get involved in anything. We moved back here at the end of 2007. I unfortunately came down with a back infection and spent a couple years trying to rehab, and now that I am mobile again, now it's time, and I also retired last October, now it's time that I have the free time to get back involved in the town and give back to what the town has given us over these years. So I've watched from the sidelines a lot of things that have happened. I've been very intrigued watching the excellent work of cable TV and seeing what's happened on the committees, and thought that with my background, I've managed subsidiary company with an annual budget of probably $12 million and maybe doing business up to $1 billion over a period of time. Total management of everything from what the families do, living in overseas environments, seeing that libraries are the cornerstone of the community. They're the hub. You can pick up any document or listen to the Budget Committee testimony from last week or from the 17th and see how well Barbara described what the library gives and what it needs and why it can't be cut and all those. So I won't regurgitate that stuff because it's all very true. It's also true that you've got to find a way to meet the objectives of trying to keep the tax rate level, and it's a tremendous challenge. And it requires people like who are up here at the panel now to balance risk versus gain. So that thought process for me is true for either the trustees of the trust fund or for the library. You know, you look at the trustees of the trust fund and there's $2.3 million that they're responsible to manage. The budget where you're doing something daily for the cemeteries is $32,000 for the whole year. So the cemetery maintenance and what you would say even cutting grass or moving something around there is to me, very small piece of what you can do in terms of what Donna's talked about and moving around, looking at the investments of the larger funds that are entrusted to the trust fund to do. So I'd be looking at that. But again, I don't know enough about that now after 5 days to be able to make a specific statement on how I would change anything. What I can do is say, I'm here, I'm available, I have time, I have the interest, and I have the desire. And I believe that, by the way, I have a master's in management and human relations. And so I've got a little bit of, some of the stuff too.
Very good. Thank you very much. Tom,
I think
do you remember the question?
I think that is the $64,000 question. How do you go forward, maintain a reasonable tax rate, and still provide the services? My motivation basically for getting involved with this is similar to yours. I'm now retired. I do have the time, I have the motivation. I enjoyed coming to the meetings for the budget and felt that from my previous experience, the Budget Committee would be a place I would like to apply my time. I don't know anything about the budget, the new one, except for what I've heard. Nothing's come through yet, but I would certainly enjoy being part of the process and carrying this forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dan?
Well, I'd first like to start off by thanking April for not using the word eclectic to describe us.
April's quite eclectic herself.
And the paper had put in that I was running for re-election. I was actually never elected. I was appointed. I lost the election for anybody. But I was part of the
So noted.
process. I was part of the process, and for the last year, it was very enlightening. And there were a lot of things to learn, not only on the course of, it's always easy to sit at home and say, well, we could cut this and we could cut that, but as it comes to find out, there are things on a statewide as well as federally mandated things you can't touch. And a lot of those things are just things that people don't understand, so helping the general public understand those things are a big thing. Plus, it would be nice to have more time to actually look at the budget when it comes. It seems like you get a budget, and here's what it is, and then they will tell you, well, I don't have the information for that, and I don't have the information for that. When do you get the information for that? When you're sitting here and they're expecting a vote from you on that very day. And it would just be nice to have a little bit more time on that. I think that's something I'd like to take a little easier when we get in.
Okay, thank you. And Chris?
I'm the first to say this is going to be a learning process. I've lived here 25 years now. I went through the school system. I know a lot about the town, but I don't know all that much about budgeting in the town. I will say the town side, at least, I think is to the point where there will have to be a cut in services if we continue to cut the budget every year. The school side, there may be some more wiggle room. I think there's going to have to be hard decisions made probably in the next couple of years to stay at a flat tax rate. I think it's going to be kind of up to the taxpayers what they want. Do they want town hall closed on a Wednesday? do they want the library closed on a Tuesday? I think it's going to be up to the taxpayers to tell us what they want. None of these are good ideas. None of these are going to be popular, but we need to do what the taxpayers need us to do.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess the question I would ask is there one experience that you've had in your business or family or personal life that is going to bring, what's the one experience that's going to bring the most to this position that you are running for now? And let's start with you, Don, this time.
Well, I don't know if there's really one experience that I could dwell on. I think it's a matter of many experiences. I'm a Navy veteran and spent 6 years serving our country, and I belong to the American Legion. I'm currently a state vice commander of the American Legion. And prior to that, I was the state treasurer for the American Legion. And prior to that, I was chairman of the state finance committee of the American Legion. And
I see a
also,
pattern there.
excuse me?
I see a pattern.
Yes. And also, I served a number of years on the trustees of the trust fund committee for the state American Legion. I also hold a master's degree in business administration from Babson College, and I also hold a bachelor's degree in science from Penn State University. And I just feel I'm quite qualified to fill the trustees of the trust fund position based upon that background. In the corporate world, I was president and treasurer of my corporation for 17 years. And prior to that, I was spent 23 years in various management positions, including as a cost analyst, financial analyst, program manager, senior program manager, manager of the program management office, and as division manager. So I think I've developed a lot of experience in all these various positions over the years, and I think that is part of me. I've lived in Londonderry for 32 years. My kids all graduated from Londonderry High School, and we've been deeply involved with the town of Londonderry. I love the town of Londonderry. And I just, as John mentioned, I want to be able to give back something to the town from an elected position standpoint.
Okay, thank you. John, an experience.
Yeah, well, you said a single thing, and I
That's
see
the tough
why-
part about it. 'cause
Well,
those
yeah,
are the types of questions
there
they're
is
going
a
to throw
single
at you.
thing. It's a body of, it's a collective body of experiences, and I guess I'll say it in two parts. As far as understanding the library and the school system and the needs of all that, we have lived in a lot of places for lots of times, but when you live outside the United States, then your community is very capsulated. And whatever your role in that community is, then you have more responsibilities for what's happening. But we've lived in Korea, in Iran, in Egypt, and in the UAE. And when you're in that environment, especially the last one in the UAE, when you are the person who runs the company, then you know everything about everybody in that company, from the kids teachers, who plays with who writes a good check or a bad check, who does this, because you lease the cars, you lease the homes, you pay all the bills. You're like the mayor, if that's suitable. So your involvement in the school is tremendous, and what you see there is you see importance, as I say, of things like the library, the importance of a good school system, the importance of the interaction of the teachers and that, and the requirements of trying to make the good things happen with a limited amount of money, and how to deal with it. So I look at my 17 years of being the mayor, if you will, of our population. At one time, it was up to 102 engineers with their families. At the same time, being the president of the American Chamber of Commerce over there for 7 years, and dealing with those issues at that kind of an interface with the American Chamber and the rest. I've got such a varied background that I think, as you've said, I've got a lot of tools I can offer. By the way, the reason I signed up for 2 positions was I saw that one was open. When I came in on Friday and signed up for the one position, and I was looking at Meg, and I said, "What about that?" She says, nobody's volunteered to serve. I go back to what somebody else has said, I think Jim said earlier, you know, there's that many people who live in Londonderry, and there's this many who want to be involved, either voting or do something else, and we've seen it everywhere from Boy Scouts to whatever. Only a few want to do it, and I want to be one of the few, and I want to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, one experience, the next 3 year Budget Committee folks, one experience that you think brings the most to what you're going to do in the budget.
That would probably be being a business owner for 16 years and being able to focus and adapt to different changing climates throughout the business cycles, and at least being successful in it and being able to sell it and walk away.
Very good, Tom. Dan?
I think it's an easy question to answer. Parenthood. I'm a parent of 4 kids. Regardless whether I'm a doctor or a lawyer, or I pick up the trash, or I bag groceries, I have a certain amount of money I have to budget, I have to pay my rent, feed my kids, put the gas in my car. I have to know what I can do without and what I can have.
Very good. All right, thank you. Chris?
I think I just bring a unique perspective to the position. On one hand, I went through the schools from Matthew Thornton to the Londonderry High School and graduated. I have a parent who works for the town, so I see everything from that side. On the other hand, I work in the private sector. I pay 80% of my insurance costs. I really feel like I can see it from both sides and have a well-rounded perspective for the town.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
One of the things that's coming up this year is they're redoing the contract with the Teamsters Union for the people over there in the library. What's the one experience? Did it once before.
Okay, very good, thank you. April, your question.
Okay, I guess my next question would be, this year with the cutting of several town and school positions suggested during budget discussions, is it possible to maintain current staffing levels in future years?
Do you want to direct that to everybody or to the Budget Committee?
Mostly the budget committee, but I suppose it would apply to the library as well, because,
Okay, then why don't we start with Tom, and we'll bring it around this way.
Just repeat that for me.
of course. My mic on? Whoops.
I was going to ask the same question.
We don't get to ask.
I'll grab you first.
This year with the cutting of several town and school positions suggested during the budget process, is it possible to maintain current staffing levels in future years, do you think?
It probably, in the climate that we're in right at the moment, it may not be. Is it something that, if the revenue picture changes, which I tend to want to look at revenue before I look at the, do it a little backwards maybe. But I think that in the current climate, it's probably not possible. In the future climate, with increased revenues, I don't see any reason why you would want to go back to those different levels that you had.
Right, Dan?
I think if the economic picture doesn't improve, no, we're probably going to have to lose more staffing. The unfortunate thing is that when we do lose staffing, it's either, you know, a very emotional or a scare tactic. We're going to lose a policeman, or we're going to lose a fireman. Or on the school level, you're always losing a member of the maintenance crew, a teacher's aide, a teacher. You never lose a member of the administration. I mean, you could probably lose one member of the administration and keep 3 teachers. And while they take pay freezes, they've never taken a pay cut. Those are the kind of tough decisions that could keep more people on.
Okay, good. Chris?
I think there's several different aspects to this question at this point. On the school side, I mean, we have a $63 million budget. I've said several times now, nothing that I would ever advocate for or vote for as a member of the Budget Committee, but the budget is staff. That's why it's so high. If they want to cut the budget to $52 or $53 million a year, they're going to have to put 33 kids in a class, which used to happen in Londonderry. It's not a good idea. It's not good for the kids learning, but that's where the cuts are going to have to come on the school side. On the town side, fire and police to me are, looking for the word. Essential. Thank you, Dan. Absolutely essential. Safety, eclectic. Safety is paramount in the town. On the other hand, you know, we may be facing an economic problem now, but we have this behemoth coming down the road called Woodmont, where we theoretically could add 2,000 residential units. You're going to need more police, you're going to need more fire. Even if nobody comes, you're going to have to maintain the roads
After you build the road.
after you build the roads. There's going to be a lot of interesting things coming down the pike, and I think it's going to depend on what happens with Woodmont, what our staffing levels are in the town, honestly. That seems to be the biggest thing facing the town right now.
Bill, would you like a crack at that one from the library side?
Yes, no. The answer is no.
Short and sweet?
We cannot, oh, I said yes, I want to speak. The answer is no. Given the fact that we've had budget cuts and we can expect more budget cuts depending on how you define those, it's got to give, something's got to give. And the library, because part is people, it's people and buying books. And you cannot not buy books only so long.
All right. Do you gentlemen want to address it, or?
Yeah, I think just in a sort of a general sense, if the given is you gotta preserve the tax rate, you don't wanna raise that at all, then other facts are that costs keep going up each year. And the magic buzzwords that I've listened to on the broadcast of, find the money from someplace. Okay, we'll find the money. Okay, we gotta find $35,000. We gotta find it. Okay, go around and do that. The next thing is when we gotta get concessions. Well, I think the ability to find the money keeps decreasing. And I think the ability to get concessions compresses down to a point where there's no more concessions to get. So then you have to look and see, do you go up in taxes, or do you then start either cutting people or services? And again, so maybe you can cut services, maybe you can buy fewer books, maybe you can do something here, but the people thing is gonna drive it. So I agree with everybody up here. I think the answer is no. You can't, down the road, you can't keep on doing what we're doing. Something has to move.
Okay. John, would you like to?
Right, I'll talk about it in general terms because it doesn't specifically relate to the trustees of the trust, although there are aspects that could relate to it. But in general, my feeling is, and I usually do have feelings about lots of things as evidenced by my letters in the newspaper. On the cost side, we might just have to try to work more closely with the unions to see whether there could be some cost reductions there. And see whether there could be additional concessions. I'm not saying there are, but it's always worth a shot to work at them instead of just laying off people. Because I know companies, and I do have a corporate background, in the past have asked their employees to incur cost reductions as far as their salaries go in lieu of laying off people. And the same thing applies to the administrative staff within the town also, whether they'd be willing to take reductions in their pay. But on the revenue side of things, it was mentioned about Woodmont Commons, that could be coming along, but there's a long gestation period associated with that. And don't forget the 1,000 acres of prime property up by the airport, which we're trying to market and bring in industry up there. And also the fact that the economy is starting to recover. And I was wondering how quickly Woodmont would move along. And by the way, I just sent in a letter that was in the newspaper asking a lot of questions about that. And I try to be objective about it, but I think all those questions should be answered. But with the economy recovering and hopefully it will continue to recover over the years ahead, we might be able to increase our tax base. I think approximately, 70% of our taxes go to the school system, or thereabouts. And so that's a big chunk, but if we can increase our tax base, especially our commercial tax base in Woodmont and also up there at the 1,000 acres, then that could go a long way to helping us meet our budget and not have to cut staff or not have to cut as much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask a question more or less based on the fact that the jobs you're going for can be frustrating, and those of you that are in them or have been in them in the past understand that. It's public service, you're dealing with multiple personalities on a board that has to make a decision, and, or with a group of people that have to make a decision. So my question to you is, how do you handle that? When you get frustrated in a situation like this that involves a lot of people, what's your negotiating style to get to the bottom line of what the committee needs to do? And Dan, let's start with you, because you're there, and give us your experience, my friend.
I'm big, how could you miss me? You listen to everybody. You don't close your mind to any ideas. Listen to what everybody has to say before you make a decision. Always try to go last, so don't pick me first again.
When we start again, it's Dan, okay? Chris, what's your negotiating style? How do you
Going
handle
off,
those things?
going off of what Dan said, I mean, you're a member of a board, especially the budget committee, is going to be 7 people. You know, you need to talk and listen to each other. You know, our job is to serve the taxpayers, especially on the budget committee. You know, we need to listen to the members, public, all their opinions, whether you agree with them or not. You know, ultimately, we're going to make a decision about how we would vote for something, but the taxpayers, number one, should be heard, will be heard, and we need to listen to them. Negotiating, you know, I said to Dan earlier, you know, the budget committee can say 7-0, we want something, and the town council can say 5-0, they don't. So I think that working together with everybody to come to a consensus is what we need to do for Londonderry.
Okay. Bill, you've been there.
Yeah.
What's your negotiating style?
My negotiating skills, right there. You have to listen to everybody. You might throw up a red herring there and see who bites at it. But you got to listen to it, take all the sides. We've never really had a big problem in the library trustees. In business, I've had a lot more problems. And sometimes somebody has to say, okay, this is what we're going to do after listening to everybody. But that's not the way you would run something like the library trustees. You got to get a consensus. And I've never had a problem when you could not get a consensus. Might not be what you want, but it's what everybody agrees is going to work.
Thank you. Dawn, your style.
Well, it's basically similar to what others have said. You have to listen to what's going on. You have to be open-minded. There's 3 trustees on the trustees of the trust fund, and you have to be willing to compromise and come to a consensus. My style has always been a consensus style, bringing the minimum amount of pressure, or people exerting the minimum amount of pressure to get the job done. And so that's usually worked pretty well for me in the past.
Good. John?
This is the point where it's good to go last, because everyone has said the points that are.
Yeah, that's what Tom's saying.
The most logical, and really the true way of doing it. You have to listen to everyone, now I'm repeating, and I'm sorry about that, but you have to listen to people, but you have to listen with an open mind, and you have to find some way of unplugging the emotions. Because when people are trying to negotiate or reach a consensus, if someone is emotionally committed to a particular point of view, then the listening factor goes way down. So I think my style has been very effective in all the situations I've been in, with employees, with families, with government people, and the rest of it. And it's because you listen, you find willingness to compromise someplace, you always try to look at the greatest good for the greatest number, and meet whatever the objective is as best you can. But it just seems that you never ever wind up with 100% for everybody. You just can't. So I think my style is open. It's easygoing. But at the end, when someone has to make the decision, then either you do it by vote, or if you're the mayor or the king or whatever, then you proclamate. Okay, and be willing to stand by what you decide.
Very good. Thank you. Tom?
I think it's basically to make sure everybody understands the exact mission, and then to listen to everybody's point of view, keeping everything focused on that one issue, and again, take emotion out of it and get a consensus of the best possible solution to that particular problem.
Okay, thank you. Now, I think we had a few questions from the audience. They're all awake, and this is good. This is very good. So why don't we step forward? And if it's a general question for everyone, let them know. If you want to specify it, do so.
This is a general question.
Okay.
You'll be dealing with various departments of the town, and my experience has been that when you're dealing with bureaucrats, maybe not the best word, but essentially what you're gonna be dealing with, they all have a tendency to think in boxes. You know, don't touch my box, you know, touch the other guy's box or something. How are you going to influence that? The Budget Committee, your advisory, how will you be able to influence the boxes so that they can think and be more flexible in a sense of addressing problems when it comes to revenue coming into the town and having to deal with it? As everybody knows, the state is rapidly approaching a $1 billion deficit, and that's going to have effect on us down here. Same with the library. I sat in on the library hearings, and my personal opinion, I found that the director was very inflexible in how to rearrange the staff. Now, a lot of companies go through this. When you do a staff reduction, you do a budget reduction, they say, okay, here's what I got, how can I rearrange it to meet things? And I find bureaucrats, when they go in their little boxes, they're very reluctant to do that. They have a mentality that I gotta fill this box, this box, versus saying how I can make the boxes work better together.
Okay, so the question again, briefly?
How can you influence, it's a good question.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
Makes the big bucks.
Well, being advisory, how will you be able to get folks to think beyond their little sphere and trying to be more cooperative among various departments in town? I think that's where we're looking at, to see how we can get beyond the, you know, I gotta protect my area.
Okay. Chris, let's start with you.
Marty, I don't have a good answer to your question.
I know, it was a good question.
All I can say to you is that as one person in this town, if you're talking about cutting a police officer or firefighter or cutting the library budget by $25,000, I'm going to cut the library budget by $25,000. It'd be great if we could have everything we wanted, but to me, public safety is number one. And we have to look at other areas to cut that stuff out. I mean, we can try to go to the negotiating table, you know, department heads give the town manager what they want, and the town manager says, yes, you can have this, or no, you can. That's how they put the budget together, in the beginning at least, when the town manager presents the budget to everybody. And, you know, then we have hearings, and we will go back and forth, you know. There's not much we can do to specifically influence what the department heads are going to do. They're all going to want everything for their department, because that's their job, to try to get everything for their department. But specifically, I couldn't give you a good answer for that.
Okay. Bill?
Yes, we just heard something that really bothers me a little bit. I'm not going to deny that the police and fire department are more important than the library, but I don't think it should be one or the other. I might point out that I know as far as the fire and probably the police are concerned, these suggestions for how big the department should be come from within that society. It is the Police Officers Benevolent Society or some situation like that that says, oh, for a town this big, you gotta have this many people. Well, you know, there's a self-interest in that. And this is what bothers me, because I don't hear anybody acknowledging this self-interest, and it's always, well, I'm gonna take police over the library. The fact is, the library is a service of the town. It's not a safety service, but it is a service of the town. And I think it's one of the things that, if you look at the town, the quality of life in the town is one of the very important things. And I think there are people, but people come here looking at the schools, but I think they also look at things like the library. What do we have in town? And I think the library is a great example. It's a beautiful thing over there. Unfortunately, it was built by the low bidder, and we're having trouble with the roof now. But that happens with all low bidders. Pardon?
Don't let him bid on the roof.
No, I wasn't there then. I wasn't on it then. The fact is that it shouldn't have to be a police officer or the library. I think there's other places, and I think that the library is something that should be thought about as part of the town and an important part of the town.
All right, thank you. Boxes juggling, Don.
Well, again, this doesn't necessarily apply to the trustees or the trust fund, but in general, everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, a lot of people tend to protect their turf. And not only within the government, municipal government, state, federal government, but also in the corporate world. And so that can make it difficult. But I think if I look at the town of Londonderry and I look at the employees, I look at the department heads and the various functions within the town, I think everyone wants to make Londonderry a better town and wants to try to increase the quality of life, and including the library, and the school system, the police and fire departments, public works department, and other departments within the town. And so I think in the final analysis, people will be willing to pull together and see the value of coming up with an efficient operation within the town of Londonderry.
Thank you. And John?
If the question is how to juggle between entities who think theirs is the most important and they want to preserve that, I think it's important to do some sort of a 360 evaluation of looking at it. You have to, if you're going to talk about the library or the police department or something else, if you're staying on the budget committee, then rather than just, and it's not an insult to them, I don't mean it that way, but one approach is to listen to whatever they have to say for 5 minutes or so, and then you look down and you compare what they have to say, and then you make some decision. I'm sure that the responsible people on the committee would look back and try to put themselves in the role of whoever the police chief is, the fire chief is, and look and see how do they view what's going on, not just what did they say, but where are they coming from with all this, and some test of reasonableness. Put yourself in the other shoe, look at it from that, and when you're in their position, imagine how they are viewing what the board or the committee is saying to them. In other words, it's a look back, it's a mirror sort of operation. And when you do that, you get a better understanding of where they're coming from. And maybe you find a way then of achieving some sort of cooperation or consensus or whatever. So I think it's not just an arbitrary panel or board that just says, okay, you talked louder, you said more, you had more numbers, you had something else. I think that there's got to be a lot more looking into and understanding before you make a decision.
Thank you. Tom?
I've just found over the years that reasonable people can come to reasonable solutions. If everybody knows the facts, everybody has the same goal, it makes it a lot easier, even with people who are trying to protect their turf. If they can be shown what the total picture is and how it's going to benefit the majority, it makes life a lot easier.
And Dan?
Well, like that gentleman from the library, and he wouldn't want to compromise police officers. Unfortunately, that is always the escape clause, and it does always seem easier just to take money from the library. And we did it because, hey, do you want 5 minutes to take out a book, or would you rather lose a police officer? And that's one of the things somebody always says every year, and that's unfair. And I don't know if I'm answering Marty's questions or not, but almost every part of the budget is like that. And you could cut deeper into it, again, if you were given the time to look at it, because every department is like that. I'll give you an example, but I don't want to use anything in particular because I don't want to be a hater. Say we have a kazoo class, and there are 300 kazoos and 3 teachers. And the budget committee or the town council or the school board wants to cut money off of that kazoo class. Well, you can cut that. The kazoo class wants to buy 100 more kazoos. But you don't think they need them, so you cut the money off of that. Just because you cut the money off of that doesn't mean they're not going to buy those kazoos. They might fire the kazoo teacher instead. And that's how a lot of this stuff works. And I think that's a part of the problem with the budget. It's that you can cut the money from something, but you can't get in there and nitpick about what it's going to be. You give a department so much money and they're going to do with it what they do, and it might not be what you were thinking. And I think that's where we need to get into it a little more and spend a little more time on it.
Very good, thank you. We had another question from the audience here.
Kazoo class. For the guys looking at the library board trustees, and I'm not really extremely familiar with the process there, but I'm assuming since you're talking about policies and programs within the library that you have a say over that, or the kinds of things, does that happen in the library? So my question to both of you would be, what kind of ideas and initiatives can you bring forward to create more interest in the library? Things that are more in tune with the way the world is going now, and kind of getting out of a less traditional or a more traditional thought process and getting into a more updated kind of process. And what kind of things have you done, and what kind of things do you envision doing to try and get more interest in there, to get more of an emotional response from the public when somebody says, we're going to cut from the library rather than the police station? If you can generate more interest in the library to get a more emotional feel from the public when somebody says, I'm going to do it, period. Does that question make sense?
I mean, the question makes a lot of sense. However, I might point out that I'm not sure, is it 7,600 families in Londonderry, something like that? So, family units, or
I guess that's roughly,
housing units.
that's a little bit on the high
The numbers,
yeah.
the numbers are there, but they're for a couple years ago, but they're still appropriate because I just asked. Of that, let's say 7,500, there are well over 6,000 library cards. In fact, it's 8,000 library cards. So there's other people in housing have, and they use them. They use them. There was one day several years ago where there was 1,000 items went out of there in one day. There was an effort to put a Starbucks or something in there, and it was said it would bring more people. We've never had a problem bringing more people into the library. They come. If they don't like the movies, they get the music CDs. There are a lot of people that come in there and use the computers. As far as modern stuff, are we keeping up? We have just started with these books with the book. The whole book is in a little piece of plastic, and you can walk around and listen to it. That's the latest thing for libraries. We haven't gotten into the reading computers yet, but that may be next. But we haven't had really a problem with keeping people interested in the library. We get these little kids in there, give them nice little shows and read to them, and they come back when they're in junior high school and in high school. Several years ago, and again, I'm not up to date on it this minute. We had we have a young kids summer reading program, elementary school, and we have a high school one. And the high school one is the envy of the state. The rest of the state wishes they could get that many people to even come to the library in the summer. And here we got these kids that should be out playing computer games, They're in the library reading. And it's 800 kids in the junior one, 800 kids in the elementary school summer program. That's pretty good interest. If that starts to drop, maybe we'll try and find something else. Right now, it seems to be working.
Thank you. And John, your thoughts?
Well, I learned a lot about the statistics now and what you've been doing over there with it. I was going to say, whatever the outreach might be, to make sure that people are aware of all the various facilities, adult programs in the rest of the library, get more library cards out. The Friends of the Library have a strong group going apparently too. It doesn't appear from what you said that there's a shortage of information about what the library is. If the question is, how do you generate more public outcry or something against any cuts in the library?
It's more like new programs. Is that what you look at? New ideas?
Is the program and
I
whether,
guess my question was, what kind of new ideas going forward can help generate more interest in the library?
Well, when the problem is put in the sense of you want the police to come to your door and help you when you got an intruder, or do you want to be able to get a new book out of the library? But is that really a fair question? But that's the question that's asked a lot.
yeah, and again, back to the statement that pops up, well, if we don't have the money, we'll close on Saturday, or we'll do something else. When something comes up that talks about a cut in services, then I think that you will see the outcry more.
Oh, absolutely. If we cut on Saturday, that's cut out the teachers, don't cut out the staff.
Yeah.
That's I don't know who said that, but
That's a red flag.
we're not going to, if I'm elected, we're not going to cut on Saturday. I would like to not cut anything, but it certainly will not be on Saturday.
But I don't have enough specific information of the current situation now to give you a more precise answer than that. I'd look at it and see.
Okay, thank
Joe,
you.
can
Is
I-
there one more question?
Can I
No.
field the question?
Sure, yeah.
Just because
Chris, you use the library.
I actually I used to, and I think it's being made out that I would want to cut the. It's not what I meant to say.
I used the question. I wasn't.
No, I know, but my what I was saying was based on this year. I guess if I would have made the cut they made this year. As I said earlier, I think that we are at a point now where every service in this town has been cut to the point where we are going to have to cut services otherwise. So I think the library at this point is at the bottom of their budget, and we'd have to cut. I wouldn't say I would cut next year. But as far as new ideas, as far as the 800 kids for the summer reading program, even if we charge each of their parents $5 for materials, that's $4,000. And if parents couldn't pay it, fine. But just little ideas like that where the town's paying now could be an idea to make money, whether Bill agrees or not, I don't know, but.
We don't want to make a debate.
No.
I can tell you what one of the big problems, and there's a hot button for everything, is the library doesn't have something they can scare you with. All they can tell you is we're gonna close one day.
Right,
They
right.
can't say, if you cut the school budget, we're gonna cut an SRO.
Right.
If you cut the fire department, we're not gonna be able to buy safety
Equipment.
equipment. All they can say is, we're gonna close one day, or we're gonna lock the bathrooms or something.
Does anyone else want to weigh in on it? All right. Okay, do we have another question from the audience? Anybody want to ask?
Do you have any
No?
more audience?
Well, they are staying awake. This is good. April, do you have one more?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
just jazzed you here, April.
what I want to do is thank you folks for getting into the rather eclectic equation here, because it's, we're putting questions out to you that might or might not apply to what you are running for, but really certainly apply to the way you approach the job and the way you would take that as you get on to a certain board. So I want to thank you all. I wish you all the best of luck in going ahead with that. Budget Committee, I don't know if a fourth is going to come out or not, but, you guys it would seem to appear are in. So we'd expect nothing less than you to be hard on the situation and fair on the situation as well. April, I'd like to thank you for staying in all day on this, and it's certainly been a trip. So, the audience, I thank you folks for staying here and for really participating, so it really works well for us. And I would again ask the voters of Londonderry, go out there and vote. These are people that are interested in your community, people that do want to help, people that have an interest, and so support them in whichever way you think is the best to do. And with that, I would like to thank everybody once again, and we'll wrap this up. Thank you.